Okay, welcome everybody. Nice to have you this evening. If you don't know me, I'm Valerie Sayer. I'm a registered and licensed dietitian, and I put this lecture together because I attended a medical and health weekend, and I was stunned at some of the newer statistics about our children, and it really bothered me. I am someone, if you don't know me, I'm very passionate about health, wellness, prevention. However, I didn't know it was getting this bad with our children. And when you hear some of these statistics, they are not to scare you, that so that you are aware of them. And hopefully it motivates you with an understanding of what you can do as a parent, grandparent, coach, teacher to make our children have a better chance to let them be healthy. So if, again, you don't know me, I'm owner of Nutrition Connection Balance. I have a food science degree. I did a medical nutrition internship at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. My degree is from Florida State. I was a compounding pharmacy director, and I've evaluated thousands of patients and collaborated with specialists and especially gynecologists. I have really believed that experience rules. You become an expert after you do things for multiple years. I've had over 20,000 patients, and I'm a mom of five. I've had my private practice, Nutrition Connection Balance, since 2005. I'm an author of two books, 8 Ways to Lose Your Blubber and Soul Soaring. And Kent Sayer is our also colleague at Nutrition Connection Balance that just finished a 2-year working with me in training and has a master's degree. And he is doing all the clinics except for the hormone clinics. And then I see patients and individual patients. But what is important tonight is that we talk about what you can do as a parent and why we're having this particular evening together. One is, did you know? Because I certainly know you care. And most people that are coaches, teachers, parents, aunts, and uncles, we care about our kids, right? I mean, we don't have kids or be around kids to make their life miserable. And our children are going to be our leaders when we're elderly. So we certainly want to be aware that 1 in 5 children are obese, not overweight, obese. Children obesity has doubled in the last 30 years. That is not a genetic problem. That's a lifestyle and food problem. 1 in 36 American children have autism in 2024. It was 1 in 150 in 2000. So what's happening? This is not a genetic change again. This is based on our environment and other things happening. Half of all US children are eating a single fruit or vegetable on a daily basis, according to the Centers for Disease Control. 27% of American children have a chronic illness. If you're not familiar what a chronic illness is, when we're talking about chronic illness, that's about 1 in 4. We're talking about things like asthma, rheumatoid arthritis, things that are more than 3 months that cause some debilitation or suffering from the parents and the children. This is one that really got me. 10,000 children under the age of 15 will be diagnosed with cancer in 2025. 1 in 3 will be diagnosed with cancer. And so I remember when my niece, who had 3 little boys, she's a very stoic, wonderful mom. But when she heard that, she was very quiet. And after one of the lectures that we gave, I asked her what was wrong. And she said, I started thinking about which one of my boys do I want to have cancer? And obviously none. So it really even compelled her to think differently about nutrition as a younger mother of what she could do. Not perfection, but understanding what lifestyle things, what kind of contaminants, what we're exposed to could really affect our children's health. And this is another really surprising one, that 11.4% of American babies were born before 37 weeks. 1 in 12 have a low birth weight, and it's mainly related to pregnant women not getting enough vital nutrients. And then I could give you a lot more statistics, what I won't, but that gives you enough to understand that this isn't something that's mild or someone that only, in California, let's say. This is affecting all of us with these kind of numbers. So why are we so unhealthy, and especially our children? It is absolutely lifestyle habits. The food quality is decreasing. 70% of what we eat is processed. I disagree. I would say it's like 90%. And 50 to 80% has less nutrition in our produce from the soil, from the contaminants, from GMO, from all different types of reasons. So there is an absolute problem. This is one of the reasons for sure. We see this a lot where we say, oh, I was fine. We hear this as a cop-out or a defense, or I call it just an automatic response. Oh, I ate French fries as kids, I'm fine. Well, the French fries now and then are completely different. Back then, not even that long ago, there were 3 ingredients: potatoes, beef tallow, and salt. Now look at the list. And this is just one example. I could give you lists like this that have 50 ingredients that kids eat on a daily basis. So it is not the same. So we have to realize we can't use that I ate that and I'm fine. Things have changed. And this is just one example when we're looking at hydrogenation, how things are changed to molecularly change something that our body doesn't recognize anymore, or even create streaking and disease in our arteries. So it's important to understand why we want to really be looking at these changes. We do not really eat real food. One of the reasons we want to eat more whole food is that 75% of chronic disease are preventable with good nutrition. When you look at some of the statistics, they're as low as 55 and up to 97% based on individualization and whole food with, of course, lifestyle, which means not smoking, or if you do smoke, as little as possible, less alcohol, and hopefully our children aren't doing any of those things, right? So we're talking about kids today. So we're looking at statistics with children. And obviously, if I bring up statistics for adults, it's worse. Everything that I'm bringing up is worse for an adult. So this applies to us also. So we have to understand that we are setting an example for the children. If you're not familiar with Dr. Bill Sears, he is one of my favorite human beings on the planet. He is one of the most well-respected pediatricians in the entire world. He has brought books to cancer treatment centers. He has 8 children himself, him and his wife. He's a pediatrician. His son's a pediatrician. His wife is a nurse. And he said, children are our most treasured natural resource. Our mission is to protect them, beginning with proper nutrition and a healthy environment. So as I talk at the very last slide, I'll give you some resources. He's a great resource for children, for children's eating, for children's illness, and a multitude of other things that are very helpful if you're a parent with any kind of concerns with your children. We know that we're supposed to have at least, or at least some people know, we need at least 7 to 13 raw servings of fruits and vegetables per day. Now remember, half of all children don't eat a single fruit or vegetable. And we know that fruits and vegetables are what directly affect the phytonutrients and the nutrition in our body, as well as getting those macronutrients, but more importantly, getting those small molecular things that change our destiny. We know that the produce today, and why we actually even need more, in my opinion, and especially if you have a child athlete, or if they're stressed, or if they're on asthma medication or other things like that, produce is picked before it's fully developed. It's transported thousands of miles, and we don't get enough variety. People say, oh yeah, my kids eat 2 every day, a banana and ketchup. They include French fries in the count. Now you just saw what I said. Is a French fry a fruit or vegetable? Come on. Absolutely not. It might have been in the old days, or if you make them at home, but they certainly are not when you're buying them in a package. So 90% of all people, all, not just children, fail to meet the daily servings. And when they do, they're typically not getting glyphosate free, which is an herbicide. They're not getting tree ripened, and they certainly aren't getting the variety. The more colors, the better. Okay. So when we talk about those, why do they protect us? They particularly have these phytonutrients and antioxidants that protect us against any kind of assault we have, overstress, maybe not washing their hands, right? When we work with athletes, they're touching each other. They're on mats. They're on the football field. There's a lot of germs. So when we have more protection, it's like a beautiful fireplace screen, right? If you don't have a screen on the fireplace, all those embers pop out and they make holes. If they make big enough holes, or the ember's big enough, it creates a fire. So we want to absolutely offset these damages, as well as assaults that we have on a daily basis, with those fruits and vegetables. It's those free radicals, or those exposure to stressors in the environment, including not washing hands, using all different types of things. Even hand sanitizers have different chemicals in it that directly affect our health. So the best way to protect them, again, is through antioxidants, through food, not through dietary supplements. When we're looking at kids, we want to include them more. When I teach parents, even myself, we find that you want to help them clean and prep the food. I don't care if they're 2 years old, if they're 18 years old. You want to leave out fruit and vegetables that are clean. If we have apples in the refrigerator, they don't get eaten. If they're out, people cut them up or even take bites and eat them. It's the same when you get grapes. If you wash them and put them together in the refrigerator, every time you open the refrigerator, kids are snacking on those, including us, instead of other things, potato chips and tortilla chips and things like that. Same with nuts and seeds, keeping raw nuts and seeds out, helping them, again, grow food like the tower gardens, eating salads at young ages, growing and picking them, helping shopping. We used to do where once a week, each of my children were able to pick out a new fruit or vegetable, even if I didn't know what it was. We'd look it up and we'd figure out what it tastes like, how to make it, what could we do with it. So when you make food a part of the environment, not a reward, not a punishment or good or bad, it helps when you include the kids in every step. Okay. And again, kids like it. Kids are much more open than adults, to be honest. It's just we can't make them and make it seem like it's a punishment. It has to be an exciting adventure, And that's where we have so many great things that you can use today when we're talking about from, special characters on TV and, Captain America and so on. You can just say, back in the old days, we had Popeye, right, with his big bicep, right, but now we've got to be a little more creative. And kids certainly, we can talk about how to be faster, how to be smarter, how to have bigger muscles. What is it that helps them get excited, not about health? What happens though with parents is that there's a real denial about this. My kids are healthy. My kids are, in sports. It's still not true. Let me give you some examples. If we look at asthma, multiple studies show an inverse relationship between a higher fruit and vegetable intake and asthma symptoms. That includes wheezing and severity. When I ran the compounding pharmacy, it was horrible to see families because you have to breathe. I always tell patients, you have to breathe and your heart has to beat. Please don't do crazy things when you can't breathe or your heart isn't beating. You need medical intervention. But what we want to do is prevent those things, keep those airways open, less inflamed. We know the mechanism. It's actually antioxidants from fruits and vegetables reduce inflammation in the airways and support the immune response and boost gut changes. We know anywhere from 60 to 80% or more of our immune system is in the gut. And, one of the reasons I always say I became a registered dietitian first is everyone has to eat. Even if you're in a coma, they got to feed you some way. You have to eat. So that's where we're all the same. And we don't treat it like it's that important. So that's one example. If we look at another one with asthma, because this is one of the things, allergies and asthma, that I see off the chart now. Essential fatty acids are beneficial in asthma management. It may reduce the risk by 51% altogether and reduce the severity. So don't tell me there isn't anything you can do but an inhaler and steroids. It's not true. The problem is, if you're a parent, you may not know this. And people always say to me, why didn't my doctor tell me this? The doctor has no training in prevention. It's all treatment, which is very important if your child can't breathe, right? But we want to try to reduce these symptoms, these airways, and make sure that the severity is reduced. Deficient vitamin D are linked to higher child asthma attacks. What? I mean, come on. Kids supplements with just 500 IUs of vitamin D and an inhaler had 46% less incidences than 17% with medication alone. Anyone that knows me for 30 years, I've been saying everyone needs to be on Juice Plus, antioxidants and food. They need to be on vitamin D. Here's some reasons just with asthma, and I can talk about vitamin D all day long. I know some of you know me on this and like, yeah, don't make her talk about it all day long, right? Just take your vitamin D. And there's also essential fatty acids. Same thing. We can talk about inflammation, rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune disease, the risk of a child getting MS and autoimmune from age 21 and above is 100% more if they don't have vitamin D and the essential fatty acids growing up. So we are setting them up for disease, but no parent purposely does that. They don't know these facts. So these are just a few studies on some of these particular things just around breathing and asthma. And I can do this around almost every particular child concern. And remember, these goes for adults too. This isn't just children, okay? But children can't fight for themselves. It's our job. Our job to be educated. It's our job to get them the right thing and the right information. Some of the facts with vitamins. The American Academy of Pediatrics does not recommend children take a multivitamin. 86% of Americans take a multivitamin every day. I have never in my entire career recommended a multivitamin. I've never recommended a prenatal vitamin, including myself, even way back when. And that's because when we show changes, most multivitamins are the wrong form, the wrong kind. And why would myself and all of you need the same thing? We know we all need D, we all need essential fatty acids, we all need phytonutrients from foods, but we all need different vitamins or minerals. And if we get the foundation set, then you fine tune and individualize and test if you need extra calcium or if you need extra iron. What we know with children is that there are three things that they are almost always deficient in: vitamin D, essential fatty acids we talked about, and iron. Iron is a reason because they're growing so fast and kids are often picky, or because they're not eating enough protein. And again, their stomachs are small, so they don't often eat a large amount of food. And if you're filling them up with other things first, they are not going to be able to eat their protein and their fruits and vegetables. So you want to be knowing their vitamin D. If you don't test their vitamin D, we can do it by a finger stick. If your doctor won't test it, then a finger stick is something you can do. Or you can have them take 500 or 1,000 IUs. We have a liquid drop. And then iron has to be tested by a venipuncture. And we don't ask parents to do that a lot unless we're very concerned. What we also know is that 400,000 Americans shown a greater risk of premature death with taking multivitamins. So you can see, and I can again give you a lot of statistics, but helping you understand why. Let's look at some of these reasons. I know this is small, just bear with me. I'll just read a few ingredients because this doesn't take long. You can do this with anything. If we look at the typical multivitamin, you can see it's got a list of things. But what you don't know is that with the ingredients, what's ever first on the list is what it's mainly made of. So Flintstone gummies, glucose syrup, sucralose. First two ingredients are sugar and sugar. So again, the problem is that is not what we want our kids to get. Then each vitamin and mineral has a rule, a certain form and a certain milligram. Even here, if you look not even far, you're going to see red dye number 40, F, D, and C, yellow number 6. They're banned in other countries. These are known cancer-causing agents. So to me, it's not a mystery why kids have illness. And I could talk about every single one of these ingredients and where they've gone wrong. Okay. Then if we look at one that's much more expensive, super in a health food store, it's basically still the same thing. They don't even have the right form of vitamin D. And when you don't have the right form of vitamin D, then you can increase your risk of all sorts of things, including autoimmune and thyroid. So again, we can see where it's really important to understand why the American Academy of Pediatrics doesn't recommend a multivitamin. Okay. So if we actually look at Juice Plus, which we'll be talking about a little bit, you can see that it's got tapioca syrup as the first ingredient. That's because when you put a gummy, you do have to have some kind of substance for food science, but tapioca syrup is actually authorized even by the Autism Society, where it doesn't cause the same issues. And then you're going to see constantly food, 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 food. The problem is when you look at a nutrition facts label like this and you compare it to one of the two that I just showed you, a super fancy, expensive children's multivitamin or a crappy Flintstones chewable, you'll see that the label looks very unimpressive. You're like, there's hardly anything in it. It's not what is the exact vitamins and minerals. It's when you're getting whole food, it's thousands of phytochemicals that directly affect and influence your nutritional level. So for example, if we look at an apple has anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C, quite a bit. Okay, how it goes up in the blood is equal to 1,000 to 1,500 milligram vitamin C tablet, but there's only 3 to 5 milligrams of vitamin C in an apple. But the bioavailability, the body knows what to do with it, and there's another 10,000 phytochemicals that directly influence our body's health. That's why we want food forms like Juice Plus. Plants are our nature's superheroes. And these are kind of words why I put this up here that we want to be using with our children and sometimes our adults and spouses, right? Because they just don't want to do things to stay healthy often. But if we can use words that resonate with them, that are truthful and ethical, I think it's really important because they contain hundreds of micronutrients that the body uses to function optimally. And we want to be at optimal level, right? This was something the patient said to me today, and I just said, man, I love that word, optimal. Right? Extraordinary. Do you want a pilot that doesn't know what he's doing? Do you want an average pilot? Probably not, right? Do you want an average surgeon? Probably not. Why are we okay with average nutrition or poor nutrition that is proven to be harmful? Here's an example of that apple page. And when we look at that apple again, it has very little vitamin C, but it's equal to much higher when you measure it in the blood. So food forms have thousands of phytochemical that will not be on a nutrition facts label. Just like a bag of carrots does not look very impressive, but we all know it is impressive. We've heard forever an apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's absolutely true. Just make sure you buy organic, okay? Because apples are always on the dirty dozen list every year. You want to buy organic. Luckily, we live in almost anywhere, even Walmart, Target, places will have bags of organic apples that are very reasonable. Okay, so we're pretty lucky these days to be able to do that. Juice Plus is one of those foundational things we talked about because it's considered food, even by the FDA. It has a nutrition facts label. It's over 30 different plant foods. The essential fatty acids are also food-based. So if we have a seafood allergy, if we're worried about things, if we're not testing, then it's very safe. You can open the capsules and put them in smoothies, put them on oats, put them in food. You can swallow them, and they also have a chewable for children. The essential fatty acids, we have 1-year-olds that will put the capsule in their mouth or open it and eat it. And I will have an adult argue with me. They don't want to swallow it. I'm like, I can get a 1-year-old. They will beg for it. Children inherently know what's good for them when they're given that kind of information or that biochemical taste. So it's really important to understand that value. The Juice Plus is made of plants. It's partnered with family farmers so that we know they're contaminant free. They're also tested for over 200 contaminants. They're harvested at the peak of ripeness. So again, all that nutrition is right there and those phytonutrients. It's quick frozen to prevent the loss of nutrition. It's pulverized and then it's dried at low temperatures and put into a vegan capsule or a soft chewable. And you can see the chewables here. They taste delicious. We used to always keep them in our treat drawer when we go to the movies instead of junk food. So again, it's food and it has a nutrition facts label. It's not a multivitamin. It's gluten and dairy free. It's non-GMO. It's vegan and it's kosher. Most importantly to me, it's become more and more important to me, and Kent would agree, of the NSF standard. I talked to someone at length today about this. She said, I'm so confused because my daughter represents this and my friend represents this. And I said, I'm not going to talk about any brand. All I'm going to talk about is what to look for so that you can then make good decisions. NSF mean we know what's on the labels in the product. No harmful or artificial substances, no contaminants, pesticides, or banned substance. And it's okay for any kind of professional athlete. That was one of the reasons in 2002 that I brought Juice Plus into the pharmacy, was because I was working with a lot of international athletes, and they really should only take NSF standard because they don't want to lose a sponsorship or a race from having, we've heard this over and over. We just heard the #1 tennis player that said he got contaminated from steroids from another trainer. We don't know, right? It can also be in shakes. It's amazing what people don't know. So when I brought it in, I thought, forget the professional athlete. What about myself? What about the military? What about our children? What about pregnant women? We don't want anyone to have contaminants, not just a professional athlete. It's the most researched nutritional product in the world with 48 studies. It's recommended by multiple healthcare professionals, and there's a Healthy Starts program. If an adult in the home takes the Juice Plus capsules, a child can get the chewables or capsules from age 4 to 25, the fruit and vegetable, for free. Now, whoever invited you can talk to you about that. They actually have to pay a $55 to $60 fee every year for your child to be in that study. But it's a wonderful study. And again, you're giving your child those things that they need to prevent different conditions and acute illnesses potentially. We know that Juice Plus has multiple research in multiple medical journals. And most importantly, we know that there are evidence that it directly changes our children's health. There's been over 4 million kids and families actually studied. $700 million have been donated. They show that after someone is on the Juice Plus for 8 to 12 months, 8 months to 12 months, almost a year or more. What we found in the pharmacy, just so you know, it was about a year to year and a half. Then we would see asthma and allergy medications going down, incidences for not breathing in the emergency room less. But they show overall 71% reduce their intake of fast foods and soft food drinks and junk. The reason is it changes the metabolic programming. When you get enough nutrition, these kids aren't being counseled by a dietitian. They're just taking the Juice Plus. We know that it has a value. They start drinking more water. 60% of less missed schools days. That's important if you're a parent working, right? Because it is really difficult when your child's sick, let alone you want your child to be sick. 61% started eating more fruits and vegetables, 66% less doctor visits, and 56% were taking less prescription and over-the-counter medications. We found in the pharmacy 75% if they stayed on it a year and a half or more. I do think that was part of I was working there and I was always educating, even if it was just a little bit, to the parents. So they really made sure they took it and their child took it. So, but these are actually results in studies that shows that if you and your family take the Juice Plus, and especially longer term, there are absolutely medical benefits, whether you feel it or not. And I think that's really important. Juice Plus is affordable. When we look at it, it's about $3.75 a day if you take the omegas, or about $2.67 per day. And again, the fruits and vegetables are free for a child. It's one adult to one child. It could be a coach with someone in, one of their classes. It could be an aunt, uncle, grandparent. And you do have to give the child the capsules or the chewable. They do not send them if they're in college. You have to do that. So that's another program you can certainly ask about. When we're looking at athletes, this is a really pet peeve of mine since I have 3 stepchildren and 2 children that are athletes. And Healthy Starts for Families is such a good start for kids to learn about through nutrition. This is Winter Benecki, an Olympian aerial skier. And I'm going to show a 2-minute video of her. Just get your tissues out. It's a short video, but it's a hard one not to cry, let me tell you. And her mom always taught her and her brothers that what you put in your body is what you're going to get out. This means properly fueling your body for success, and you can chase your dreams. The reason I want you to see this is because we want our children to be resilient, and ourselves, right? I mean, we had a world of stress, politics, hatred, bad nutrition. I mean, everything, right? I mean, just everything. COVID happened, the whole world. We're thrown with all sorts of stress. You want resilience for yourself and for your children. Listen to how Winter Benecki is one of those people, and you will be stunned. So give me a second. I am not so good at this, but I'm going to make it happen. Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay, hold on. I practice and I'm still not good at it. So thank you for being patient with me. Okay, here we go. Oh, there's no sound.
Was always her deputy.
Okay, I'm going to start it over. Right.
Benecki, nice and stretched out. With a name like Winter, perhaps this was always her destiny.
Ranked number 2 on the World Cup standings after best season yet.
22-year-old aerial skier Winter Benecki is making her Olympic debut. Why do you do this?
I just because I love it. It's a ton of fun, and I love being able to push myself to the limits.
Growing up in Michigan, Winter loved to run and ski. Her mom, Dawn, says she was born to compete.
She was a huge athlete, and running distances kids didn't run. And unfortunately, she was 9 and her dad got diagnosed with cancer.
It was an aggressive form of prostate cancer diagnosed on her dad's 40th birthday. Less than a year later, he was gone.
I always remember him being such a fun and loving dad, and always had the most contagious smile of anybody ever.
Winter was determined to turn her pain into purpose.
I was always wanting to do something bigger and better in his memory. And one day I was just looking through the Guinness Book of World Records, and I came across the youngest person to run a marathon on all 7 continents. I immediately looked at my mom and I was like, I want this record for my dad.
So they got to work. By 14, Winter had done it. Marathons on all 7 continents, raising $500,000 for prostate cancer research. Accomplishing that goal set Winter on a quest for her next, becoming an aerialist. That meant moving alone to Park City to train.
Did you know then, like, the goal is the Olympics?
It was definitely the end goal. I obviously first wanted to make the US ski team, and so it's kind of stepping stones. I always had the Olympics kind of as the peak of the mountain.
She made it to the top, with her dad in mind every step of the way.
It's all about her dad. She knows her dad's watching. She wants to get that gold medal, not for, anybody other than her dad.
I am a part of him, and being able to carry on his legacy, his persona of always being cheerful and having that great big smile to share with the world.
Her dad, no doubt, smiling from above too.
Isn't that amazing? All right, let me see if I can stop the share here. So hopefully you see why we want our children, right? She certainly had tragedy, but she again found the reserves to really change and use that trauma for great things. And so it's just, we want that resilience for ourselves and our children, right? I mean, it's just so important. So Winter's a pretty positive person too when you meet her. She's exactly like you just saw. Pretty amazing young woman. So why do I mention this? Because food is fuel. And this is when we talk about young athletes, I try to think of things that help you remember things. So if you had a racehorse, right? You had $1 million racehorse. Do you feed it McDonald's French fries? Anyone? Heck no, right? Even when you give it a treat, right? What do you give it? Apple, carrots. And yet, I said, how many, horse trainers and investors have you seen give M&Ms to a racehorse? So again, we've got to think about this in a way, because again, that epigenetics, nutrigenomics means those phytochemicals, those important foods, vitamin D, ferritin, essential fatty acids, are those phytochemicals that help interact by modifying disease genes, even genetic ones, and helping with performance and repair. When we're talking about young athletes, we certainly have seen injuries off the chart these days, completely off the chart. I don't believe it's just overtraining, it's the poor nutrition. They don't eat enough protein, they're light vitamin D. I've never seen a child I've tested that didn't have medically low vitamin D. It's just wrong. It absolutely should be addressed at all ages. We want to have less injuries. We want them to be sick less. We want to prevent fatigue, and we certainly want higher performance. Why would they be performing? Here's our son, Christian, who just is 26 and been taking up pole vaulting like his dad. Well, again, he's got to have a lot of things, a lot of bags of tricks to be able to stay healthy and see if he can make it as a pole vaulter, right? So it's really important that we look at food and what we're doing as fuel. And I'll see people do all this stuff from, personal trainers and special coaches and their uniforms and traveling with them. And yet they'll go to McDonald's afterwards. Now, I'm not saying you should never go to McDonald's or go to different things, but we've got to do better about fueling and at least get the foundation right. So again, we want to think about these things with our children, our grandchildren, and everyone else. And it doesn't have to be hard or bad. You can look at it as a really exciting thing, just like Winter Vinecki does. It's a choice. She's made hard choices and had hard things happen. And she's a happy, healthy, very athletic and well-rounded woman. So when we look at this, there's a lot of other resources. So tonight you may be part of something. I know some of you were having people over, and afterwards you can share recipes and different tips and find out what else is happening. There's some really great things. If you live in Florida, there's a new, our particular government here is pretty into at least some of the good things with nutrition, and we get a lot of updates as health professionals. There's a new Strong Florida Mom and Dads link that has all sorts of free information for parents. Talk to the person that invited you because they have recipes that you can use. We have books of hundreds of recipes that are gluten, dairy-free, high nutrient dense things, from cookie bars to energy balls that are 1,000 times better than most bars and other junk food that you could be having for sports events. And when you're the parent that needs to bring the dessert, you can bring things that kids will eat that are actually healthy. So, get those recipes. Any book by Dr. William Sears and Martha Sears. He's become a dear friend, #1 pediatrician, parent of 8. I remember when I was running a pediatric center in Cleveland, and I was also a lactation consultant. And man, it was not as easy as I thought it would be. You can read anything until you have to do it or work with parents that are having issues. I read all of his books. I had no idea he was a proponent for nutrition for children until I met him at a conference. And now we've become friends. So any of his stuff is fantastic. All of his books are good. If you have trouble, like I was talking to a parent today that has to make 3 meals at home, 3 children that are picky, won't eat, certain things going on, dynamics, emotional, parenting's rough. you want to up your game, become a parent because it's the hardest job you will ever have. I'm telling you. But Dr. Becky Kennedy is a great person. She's got a website, goodinside.com. Just even Google her or get on one of her, she did a great interview with Huberman Labs, Dr. Huberman, and man, it was good. I was like, I liked it as an adult, a parent of adult children. And it really, when you learn other tactics and how psychologically we all work with belief systems and taste preferences, we can actually figure out other ways to really help so we're not battling with our children and ourselves and our spouses, but be able to find out that common ground. So in my office next week, I'll be doing an event where we can bring recipes and meet and talk about children and just try different things. Talk to the person that invited you. They might have something in your area. I do have to have RSVPs to hold that so that way we can have a nice evening. But hopefully you've learned a lot tonight. You know, we certainly want to thank you for showing up because obviously you care dearly about your kids and your family and our children's future. Let me just go ahead and stop the recording.